Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective, and here we go. Get your popcorn out. Tons of stuff going on. University of Texas staff changes. Todd Orlando is out. Drew Mehringer is out. Corey Meekins reassigned. Tim Beck reassigned. We're going to talk about all of that. Van Villinger's decommitment as well. But first, you guys check out our sponsors. Boss's Ranch, phenomenal product. This Red River Ranch flavor, guys, it's the bee's knees. It's awesome. Best darn ranch in Texas. Go check them out at your local HEB in the cold produce section. So this afternoon, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, haven't been feeling well, which is why we're not doing a live tonight. I did speak with Tran over the phone before recording this, and we'll try to sync up hopefully tomorrow as I am under the weather. But with the emergency situation that is going on here and Tom Herman dropping the hammer today, I had to get something out to y'all just to react to all this. So we'll start with Todd Orlando, who has been relieved of his duties as defensive coordinator per Tom Herman's release statement today. And I am surprised by that personally because, he still had 1 year left on his contract. And the reason why I say surprised may be, I didn't think he'd be the first person to go at this time. Am I surprised that he was fired? No, but I am surprised that it was before the bowl game, and he was the big. He's kind of like the lieutenant, the second in command, if you will. I know Stan Drayton is technically the assistant head coach, but Todd Orlando being the highest paid staff member and a guy who in 2017 or after the 2017 season, we actually, extended and gave him a raise and was one of the higher regarded defensive coordinators in the Big 12. But life comes at you fast. And while I do like Todd Orlando, and I think he is a very good football coach, Texas has decided that the production was not there. The player development was not there. And I think this is just the first shoe to fall. Now, obviously, they need a staff to get them through bowl preparation and these practices and getting through the end of the season. But I actually expect now for them to fully revamp that entire staff. I know Craig Nivar is going to be taking over as the defensive play caller for the bowl game. Sounds like Jeremiah George will be stepping in to coach the linebackers, as that was Todd Orlando's responsibility. And then you still have Oscar Giles and Jason Washington. I think depending on what direction Texas goes, at defensive coordinator, because we'll get into possible candidates and replacements here. This isn't going to be a super long video because everything's just so fresh and we're still getting a lot of information. But I think at this point, all those guys got to go, right? You look at the defensive line, and granted, they played better this last game against Tech, but the production just wasn't there, and that's something that we've all complained about as fans. Is we talked a lot about the alignment and the scheme and all that, but the bottom line is the players weren't being developed and the scheme wasn't being adjusted to their skill sets, and there was not only a lack of productivity, like I stated earlier, but the repeated mistakes. Tom Herman alluding to this a few weeks ago about we can't even play man coverage. We can't identify when a player gets here, we should be able to at least teach those things. So tells me that they've identified that with Todd Orlando, there was a teaching gap with their players that for whatever reason, messages weren't able to get through, and he's removed. Some of you, and I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts in the comments because, like I said, I personally like Todd Orlando, but, strictly business, never personal. And I said that before, and I have to stay true to that. I personally would have given Todd Orlando one more year because of, the circumstances he had with the injuries and whatnot. But they're factoring in what happened last season as well, and the dip that we took defensively. They're factoring in his customary the way he starts these football games and the poor scripting. That's a knock against him. The lack of you leading the conference in missed tackling, the lack of turnovers. Now, granted, that tells me that this decision was probably made weeks ago in terms of what Tom Herman and Chris Del Conte are thinking. Why is that? Because the last four games, it was 24, 24, 23, 24 in terms of what the defense held up and seemed to get better at the end of the year. But that was not good enough for them, and they saw what they needed to see, and they want to go and get a big dog defensive coordinator. Now, that's what I'm hoping is going to be the case, because I think you're going to have a hard time trying to sell this fan base on somebody like a Chris Ash, who is one of the names I've heard thrown out there, former Rutgers coaches now, analyst, and I want to see somebody out there, whether they look at the NFL or obviously back channeling, and that they said a nationwide search for a top-tier defensive coordinator. You've seen a lot of these schools, whether it's LSU going to Dave Aranda or A&M Mike Elko or any of these guys that, you want the best minds in there, and we need to assemble an elite defensive staff. So I'm ready to move on from all the brothers that are there. I appreciate their contributions. Oscar Jaws has done a good job in recruiting recently, but the development's just not there. And I think they all need to be relieved of their duties at the end of the bowl season. So moving on to Drew Mehringer, that was an easy call, right? All the drama and the conflict and the Brennan Eagles stuff, the Jake Smith stuff, the way our guys have been underutilized, even Devin Duvernay up until this season. That wide receiver room, considering the talent and the little juice they got out of it, and really just the passing game coordination, which is something that Drew Mehringer had a big part of. When you factor in that with him just butchering relationships to the point where I think I even saw a report that if he had stuck around next week, there would have been a revolt. So when you hear things like that, it's best that they part ways immediately. So that was a great call by Tom Herman, and probably stuck with Drew a little too long, to be honest with you. Probably should have moved on from him during the season. Now, Tim Beck is important because I think this also confirms him being demoted from offensive coordinator to just the quarterback coach. Again, bowl season. We'll see if he sticks around post-bowl, because I can make the case that the relationships that he has from a recruiting perspective, he's done a very good job from a quarterback recruiting perspective. He's done a good job in Arizona with Bijan Robinson, and many others have pointed out Tim Beck has done a good job from a quarterback development standpoint in his relationship with Sam. Now, here's where it gets tricky. If you're bringing in a Graham Harrell, a Joe Brady, or even a Chad Morris, whatever direction Texas decides to go, and I hope they even look at more candidates and continue to vet. How does that gel with Tim Beck and his philosophy, or is he just going to be basically, you're the quarterback coach and that's that? The other thing this tells me is that Tom Herman, Drew Mehringer, they've had more of the hands-on of those offensive play calling responsibilities than they let on. Now, every press conference, and people have asked me about this, they get really weird when they answer, Tom Herman gets really weird when he answers the question about who's calling the plays and how that process is being handled on their end. He is weird about it. So now Tim Beck is still here, but just in a quarterback role. I would advocate, if they can make it work with whoever the new offensive coordinator will be. Right now, I'm probably personally leaning Graham Harrell from USC, former Big 12 guy, and has had experience at North Texas and USC calling plays and has been successful. But I would still advocate to keep Tim Beck here for Sam's development purposes and recruiting purposes in general. Now, going back to what I was talking about with the defensive staff, we do lose Van Billinger out of Utah, who I think now is, especially the way the Utah defense is playing the collegiate team going into the Pac-12 championship. I think they're probably going to get him. But, this is the cost of doing business when you make staff changes. You're going to lose some kids. Now, Xavier Alford has come out solid. Durb was solid. A lot of guys are still grounded in their commitment to Texas. But, this is like the June 1st cuts, if you will, of the NFL. There's still going to be another wave of guys after the bowl game, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. So I think all of this at the moment is appropriate for what Tom Herman's looking to do. Andre Coleman's going to be relieving Drew Mehringer of his duties through the bowl season, but I expect us to move forward in another direction depending on the offensive coordinator. So you guys let me know who you want to see defensive and offensive. What we've started talking about names. Chris Ash is not a name that excites me, but I do like Graham Harrell for offense. But we'll love to get y'all's feedback, guys. So short video. We'll try to come back live, hopefully when I feel better. So guys, Horns always up.